Hi everybody, it's me, Miss Theresa, and I am here to do another movement art lesson with you today. Today we're going to be talking about objects in outer space, and we'll also learn about using direction and pathways in movement art. Then we'll put what we learned about together to create a dance together. And I'm going to do something a little different. I'll kind of show you some tools that I use to create dance in case when you go home, you would like to learn how to make a dance too. But you know, the first thing that we need to do is we need to warm up and get ready for some movement art. So what we will do is we will do a warm up. We'll stand up, push our chairs in. We'll put our feet together, our hands by our sides. We'll stand in neutral to get ready to move. So for this warm-up, we're going to be using our breath. So every move that we do, we'll either breathe in, we'll inhale, or we'll exhale. Try to be mindful of your breath and your breathing and use your breath to help you do your moves. All right, let's get started. You can follow along with me. We're in neutral. Breathing
well,
in.
I'd like to visit the moon on a rocket ship high in the air. Yes, I'd like to visit the moon,
Exhale.
but I don't think I'd like to live there. Though I'd like to look down at the earth from above, I would miss all the places and people I love. So although I might like it for one afternoon, I don't want to live on the moon. I'd like to travel under the sea. I could eat all the fish everywhere. Yes, I'd travel under the sea, but I don't think I'd like to live there. I might stay for a day there if I had my wish, but there's not much to do when your friends are all fish, and an oyster and clam aren't real family, so I don't want to live in the sea. I'd like to visit the jungle, hear the lions roar, go back in time and meet a dinosaur. There's so many strange places I'd like to be, but none of them permanently. So if I should visit the moon, well, I'll dance on a moonbeam, and then I will make a wish on a star, and I'll wish I was home once again. Though I'd like to look down at the earth from above, I would miss all the places and people I love. So although I may go, I'll be coming home soon. 'Cause I don't want to live on the moon. No, I don't want to live on the moon.
Give yourself a big squeeze, big squeeze, big back squeeze. Good. Shake out your head, shake out your shoulders. Let's stay standing. And we're going to learn a little bit about using direction and pathways in movement art. Okay guys, let's learn a little bit about direction and pathway. So direction and pathway are kind of the same and kind of different, but let's learn about direction first. So with direction, it mostly has to do with the way that our body is facing. So when I say facing, I'm really kind of talking about my face, but also the front side of my body, okay? So right now, with my feet in neutral, I'm facing my camera screen so I can talk to you guys. You're facing your Promethean board so you can hear me and see me. So we're facing each other. That has to do with our direction. Let's change the direction of our body. Let's see if we can face our body this way. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so right now the front of my body is facing this direction. So there are all kinds of different directions we can go. Let's turn and face our body this direction. Aha, very good. So now my body's facing this direction. So we have directions all over the place. We can be up. Let's look up and point our finger up. Okay, that's a direction. Up is a direction. You know what another direction is. You got it. Down. So we can look down. That is another direction. So direction has to do with where our body is facing, but we can also travel in different directions. So that means we're not just standing in one place, we can be traveling. We can either stay in one place or travel. So for example, I could stand here and reach my arms in a forward direction. So I'm reaching my arms forward. Or I could travel forward. Let's do a little march. You guys travel with me, okay? Here we go. Traveling, marching forward. That's also a direction. Let's check behind us first, and then we'll march backwards. Okay, here we go. Marching backwards, not bumping into anyone or anything. We could also point side to side. We could do a safe move, kick side to side, right? So that's a direction, sideways, right? Or we could travel. Let's do a little jump. We'll do a little jump bump to the side, right? So we're going to jump sideways, bump sideways, boop. Jump sideways, bump sideways, boop. Let's jump and bump this way. Jump, bump, jump, bump, jump, bump. Side to side. So those are different directions. All right, so pathway is kind of the same, right? Because when we're using a pathway, we are going in a direction. But pathway really means the route or the way that we take to travel when we move across the floor. So a pathway is always going to be a traveling move, right? So I could travel a straight pathway, okay? So I'm going to go in a forward direction, traveling in a straight pathway on my tippy toes. Let's try that move together. Ready? Here we go. Travel forward, tippy toe, straight forward, pathway on your tippy toes. Okay, now we could also take a pathway straight backwards, but let's turn and face the opposite direction. And we'll do our tippy toe move. So we took the same pathway, but we changed our direction, okay? We could also we did a straight forward pathway, but we could do another straight pathway to the side. Let's do a slide move, taking a sideways pathway. And we can do a slide move, taking another sideways pathway, right? Or we could do our jump bump. So our pathway's still straight to the side, but just a different move. We're using some locomotor move, and that one's a non-locomotor move. Jump travels, the other one doesn't. Okay, so we have straight pathways forward and back, side to side. But we can also have curvy pathways too. Maybe now we're watching out again for objects around us, people around us, we don't want to bump into anyone, right? So we could do a curvy pathway where we can kind of curve around. So we're not going in straight lines anymore. I'm just doing a walk move, curving side to side, right? Or a zigzag pathway. That doesn't have so many curves on it. It kind of has more points. So maybe we could do let's do a zigzag with a jump. Zig, zag, zig, zag. Very good, okay. Or we could even have a circular pathway. That would be a traveling move that goes around and around in a circle. Let's try that. Now you might have to make your circle kind of small if you don't have very much room. We'll do a walk. What about skips? We can skip in a circle. So now that we know about pathways and about direction, let's keep those things in mind for later on when we create our dance. But it's time to switch gears a little bit and let's talk about some objects in outer space. You guys can have a seat. So let's talk about some objects in outer space, and we'll actually look at some pictures too while we're talking. So objects in outer space are things that you can see in the sky, but how do we know that the things that we see are in outer space? Some things that we see in the sky are in Earth's atmosphere. Do you guys know about Earth's atmosphere? So Earth, the planet that we live on, has something special called an atmosphere. And what that is like a bubble around the Earth. So it's like this tiny bubble that's just a little bit bigger than the Earth itself. And it is made of gases, okay? So gases are a kind of substance that we can breathe in. One of the gases in Earth's atmosphere is oxygen, and that is a gas that we need to survive. So you remember how we were doing those breathing moves? We were doing our movement, but we were doing breathing along with it. Well, breathing is really important because it keeps our body alive, right? So the Earth's atmosphere is really important to us too because it has the gases that we need to breathe. So, like I was saying, some things that we see in the sky are inside of that bubble, right? Inside that atmosphere bubble, like birds. If we see birds flying in the sky, they are inside the Earth's atmosphere. Planes are also inside of the Earth's atmosphere, and we might also look up in the sky and see some clouds. Those are inside of the Earth's atmosphere, but there are also other things farther away that are on the outside of Earth's atmosphere that we can look up and see too. So some things that we see in the sky outside of Earth's atmosphere are the sun. So the sun is a giant ball of gas. Remember how we were talking about the atmosphere was made of gas? The sun is made of gas too, but it's a very hot gas that burns. The sun is very big and it's very important to us and to Earth. Because of the sun, plants are able to grow and we're able to have food and survive. Now, the sun is an object that is in outer space that we see during the daytime. And it's actually a star, but it's Earth's star. So it's the star for our solar system. We'll talk about our solar system in another lesson. The rays of the sun, so that's the heat and the energy from the sun, travel out in every direction and they reach the Earth, right? And we can feel the sunshine when the sun is shining, right? It warms the Earth and it allows food and plants to grow on our planet. Another object that you can see in the sky, this one you can see during the nighttime, but sometimes you might see it during the daytime too, is the moon. So we can also see the moon. The moon is also in outer space. It's outside of Earth's atmosphere. So the moon kind of glows. So where the sun shines really bright, the moon, we can also see some light reflected off of it, but it's a softer light. It's kind of glowing, right? And another thing that we might notice about the moon is sometimes it looks a little different, right? So it has something called moon phases. Sometimes it might look like a crescent shape or a half shape, or sometimes it might look all the way full. It even has another phase that we can't see at all. It's the new moon. The moon actually affects the water on the earth. So the moon can kind of pull water and affect water levels in the tide. The moon travels through the outer space, but it travels in a pathway that goes around the earth. So the moon goes around and around the earth in something called an orbit. So besides the sun and the moon in the sky, you might also see stars. Do we see stars during the daytime or at nighttime? We see stars at nighttime, that's right. So the stars that we see in the sky are kind of like the sun. But when we see the sun, it's big and bright and it shines its light very bright. Stars are also very big and bright, but they're far, 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 far away. So they're way farther away from us. So that's why they look smaller. We also might know that stars kind of twinkle, right? So we might see stars twinkling in the sky. And sometimes we can recognize certain stars too. Some stars, actually, if you look very carefully and very closely, you might want to do this the next time you're outside and it's a clear, starry night. You can notice that some stars have different colors. Some stars might look a little more yellow, and some stars might look a little more red or blue. And you might also notice some stars kind of create different shapes, and we call those constellations. And we can use constellations to tell us what part of the year it is, and also we can use stars to help us find our way in different directions, that help us navigate. That's called navigating. Here's a constellation that you might know. This one's called the Big Dipper. So if you look up in the sky, there are lots of constellations. And this one we call the Big Dipper because it looks kind of like a spoon, right? But there are other constellations, like constellations of different kinds of animals that you can look up. So now that we know about some objects in the sky, what I want to do is I'm going to show you something that I made for our dance that we're going to be creating. So remember I said that we like to use tools when we're creating things, right? If you were going to create a painting, you might use some paint and a paintbrush and a canvas, and you'd use those tools. Well, I use some tools when I'm creating dances too, and I wanted to share those with you in case you want to make your own dances someday as well. So one thing that I use is a notebook or a journal, but today I have this kind of big pad, so I wanted to show you a picture of it and what I did. So I thought about those things that we talked about with the sun and the moon and the stars. So you can see my sun and moon and stars, right? And then I wrote down some words in each different column for the sun and the moon and the stars, some things that I know that we talked about, that I learned today about the sun and moon and the stars. So you can see I wrote words like hot, under the sun, and rays. Oh, shadows, I forgot to talk about how the sun is responsible for shadows, because when it shines on us, right, the place that it doesn't go, the light doesn't go through, creates a shadow on the other side. I can't believe I forgot to tell you guys about that. The moon column, I wrote about how it glows, how it orbits around around the earth. And then I also wrote a column for the stars, that they're like the sun. They're also made of gas, just like the sun is. They're far, far away. So I wrote all of these things down, and I was thinking that I could use some of these ideas for some different moves. So I'm going to use this to think about what kind of moves I want to put in my dance about objects in outer space. So I know 3 different objects in outer space that I could make a dance about, but I also want to use direction and I want to use pathways in my dance. So I looked at all of these things and I said, which one of these things could help me show about direction and about pathways? So I took another picture that I want to show you of my pad. So I circled some different words that I could use direction or pathways for, and those are going to help me figure out what kind of moves I'm going to do. And I'm going to create them together with you guys today. So I didn't make up this dance beforehand. We're going to create it together. So I circled shines because the sun shines in different directions. It shines out in different directions. I circled rays because the rays of the sun, that's the energy and the heat from the sun. That's how it shines, right? So those rays go out in different directions. So I could do a ray move that maybe goes up and down and side, and diagonals and all over the place. I also circled food and plants because food and plants grow up in an upward direction towards the sun. So that's kind of cool. The sun shines towards it, and then the plants move toward the sun. In the moon column, I circled the word orbit because the moon travels in an orbit pathway around the earth. So that one seemed like a really good way to use pathways for our dance. I could make a circular pathway and do some kind of move in a big circle that travels to show how the moon travels too. In our last column for the stars, I circled the word twinkle and constellation. I wanted to show how the stars twinkle, and I thought maybe I could do a twinkle move with the constellation. So what I was thinking about here is a constellation is a bunch of different stars, right? That creates a kind of shape, almost like connect the dots. So I thought that maybe I could make a pathway in the dance where I would do a twinkle move and then travel to where another star is and do another twinkle move and then travel to the next one until I create a constellation. All right, so let's try to do these ideas together. Let's go ahead and stand up. Oh, but before that, I wanted to tell you about one other thing that I thought of to make our dance. I thought about some music that inspired me and that made me think about outer space and objects in outer space. So that's another tool that got me into, that we can use, but it got me into the mood or made me feel like a mood of outer space. So we'll use that tool at the end, but right now, let's go ahead and put our dance together. So since on my chart I started with the sun and then I went to the moon and the stars, I'm going to follow that order too, and I'll start with the sun shining its rays in different directions. So I'm going to use my arms to show the sun shining, and I'm thinking that I will start, maybe I'll start a big, since the sun is big, I'll make my stance big too, okay? And I'll shine up and to the sides, all the way down. Now I'm shining in a big circle this way, but I didn't do to the front and to the back. So I'll do shining this way, and then I'll twist and shine this way, since we said the sun shines its rays all the way out. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that kind of shows how the sun can shine in all different directions. I'm counting in sixes because I'm thinking of the music that I'm going to be using. I already listened to it. Let's try those. Shining in different directions, starting up, going side down, front and back. Yeah, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now remember, I also thought about food and plants growing because of the sun. That's important to us. So my next move, I'm going to think about, you know what I just thought about when I thought about plants? I thought about like little stems and vines that curl up. So I'm going to start down, and I'll do a curly stem and vine that moves. Oh, it kind of does, like, it moves in an upward direction, but it also has kind of a curvy pathway. So let's do that curvy pathway together. So that shows how plants and food can grow. Oh, we'll get a little bit higher because of the sun shining. Okay, now we have two moves. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's use our spine and our torso for that move too. So not just our arm, but we can make our whole body the plant for that one. That's more fun. Well, we won't just use our arm, we'll use our whole body. Next, we thought about the moon. So we came up 4, 5, 6, we did our twisties moves, right? Now the moon, we said we were going to use pathway because it orbits around. So I'm going to make a kind of big full moon shape with my body, and I'm going to do an orbit 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. And I'm imagining the Earth is right here, and the moon's moving in a circular pathway, a circular orbit around the sun, around the Earth, I mean. So we'll do 2 6s for that. 1, 2, 3. Are you doing it with me? I hope so. 4, 5, 6. Aha. Last we said we have stars that twinkle, and we're going to make a constellation. So I'm going to think of a twinkle move. Now the stars are far away, and the sun looks really big to us, but since the stars are far away, it looks smaller, right? So let's do a twinkle with our hand here, and then we'll move sideways, right? So we're going to make a straight pathway sideways. We'll twinkle here, pathway sideways, we'll twinkle, right? Now we're going to go in a, so we did a pathway, but now we're just going to go in a lower direction. We're actually using levels here. Twinkle, let's go sideways, pathway, twinkle, and higher, so we'll go up higher, twinkle, making the Big Dipper. And that's going to be all of our dance, so we'll take a bow after that, okay? So things about the sun, the moon, and the stars. Let's try it with some music. Ready, here we go. Ready, here we go. learning about objects in outer space with me today, and for learning about pathways and directions and how we can use them in movement art, and creating that dance with me and learning my dance. I had a really fun time doing it. I hope you did too, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.